back here at St. John's University where I originally made my bottle, and I'm going to follow up with it now. I'm here with Steve Lemke, the program manager at the St. John Pottery.
Here at St. John's University at the St. John's Pottery, we have what's called the Johanna Kiln. It is the largest wood-burning kiln in North America. It's 87 feet long and it has 3 distinct chambers or rooms that we put the pots into. A kiln of this size means that our studio and our staff and the artists that are part of this community and from all over the world that come to help do this, they can only do it once every 2 years because the kiln is so large, it takes that long in order to get all those pieces made and to load the 12,000 pieces of pots and sculpture into the kiln. That takes this studio about 7 weeks of time to do that. Then after that, we start the firing. So we have what's called a lighting ceremony. Usually someone from the monastery here at St. John's will come and do a blessing in front of a crowd that gathers, usually about 300 people. Also part of that kiln blessing will be our director, Richard Bresnahan, the artist in residence. He will set out rice and sake and other offerings and will pause to remember someone who is close to this community or to the studio, maybe who has passed on. The kiln is then lit with a large torch and it fires for 10 continuous days, 24 hours a day, and takes a crew of about 60 people working in multiple shifts around the clock to make that happen. All involved, that's a style of firing that make this place very unique and will ultimately result, we hope, in a really compelling firing result at the end.
So all the wood that goes into the furnace is locally sourced here?
Yes, about 14 cords of firewood that we go through to make a firing happen. And we easily get that amount from what's available here. At the end of the firing, we do a final stoke. People gather to seal up the kiln. It's one way for all the people that are firing this kiln to come together at the same time, because up until that point in time, we're all on different shifts throughout the day and the evening and the late night as well. And different groups of us kind of gather for meals. But at the end of the firing, you know, we absolutely all want to be there, first of all, to witness that, but also to work on that. We put mud on top of the kiln to seal in the temperature to stop the fire, but also to ensure that that kiln will cool very slowly over a period of 2 weeks. And at the end of that time, very slowly we slide those doors open, and that's the first time that we actually get to see inside the kiln. Here comes a truckload now. I can show you what's already been unloaded from the kiln.
Okay, cool.
So here on this first rack, we have pieces that have come out of the front chamber of the kiln. This is where the firing starts. This is where we first begin putting firewood into the kiln. The pots are sitting on the kiln shelves as unglazed pieces of pottery, and the wood that's put into the kiln burns down as a fuel, but also the minerals that remains in that wood fuel is buzzing around inside of the kiln and is settling onto the surfaces of the pots in light and heavy amounts to create a melting glazed surface in a way that we can't necessarily control. For us, that's what makes wood firing very exciting, right, is that unpredictability. These are the second chamber. We also call that the Glazed Chamber. These are all pots that prior to being fired, we did glaze them using glazes that we mix. Usually that's using the minerals from plant material. So for example, this cup here, this is an example of our navy bean straw ash glaze. So this blue color is made from the minerals of the ash of the straw of the navy bean plant. And that's different from some other studios that might purchase their glazed materials or ceramic industry materials where you're using heavy metals or poisonous materials that result in something where it's possible you might not be able to eat or drink out of it. And for us, you know, so much of what we do is we want it to be truly functional, right? From the ground up.
Is this from the last chamber?
Yes, this is the third chamber, the Tanegashima chamber. So Tanegashima is an island in Japan where this style of firing and styles that are kind of similar to this style of firing were originated. And we're one of the few places in this region that do this style of firing.
So all the coloring and all the patterns on it, that's just from the fire.
It's just from the fire, yep. Yep, and I think it's significant that you might have Richard Bresnahan's work, the artist in residence, the director of the studio. He's a master potter, right? You might have someone like his work in the kiln. You might have an international, like a famous artist coming to visit who might have their work in the kiln. You might have an apprentice's work or kind of a young student's work in the kiln. And you might have a child's work in the kiln. And so all those pots are up against one another being fired together as we're working together in community and creating these one-of-a-kind patterns based on basically what's gone into that kiln firing. So for us, that's the Tanagashima chamber. If you like, we can go over there and see what they're pulling out of the kiln right now. Hopefully find your bottle.
All right. Got my first bottle. Got a nice little glaze on it. I think it turned out pretty good.
Very nice. Okay. Yeah, there's your drinking cup. Very nice. This part's a little bit sharp with the fly ash, but then you can come down to the studio, and then Ozzy can show you how to get that all nicely cleaned up, all washed up. So you'll be drinking out of it every day.
All right. I now have my bottles after 10 days in the kiln and then a few weeks of unloading it. Really like the very last few I've gotten out. So now the kiln is completely empty and I have my completed items. 2 of my cups, they're done. 1 of my bottles, and another one of my bottles unfortunately ended up breaking. So I think my sake consumption has been cut in half now. There's just a few steps left. Just gotta take it back to the pottery studio, clean them up, and they'll be ready to drink out of. I'd say that was a success.